Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2019-2020 NFL Divisional Round Weekend Playoff Predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, for the start of the postseason, it was definitely a wild weekend for Wild Card Weekend, and definitely in terms of how each game was down to the wire. Came down to the end. All four games were within one possession. You had two overtime games in the wild card round. The first time since 2011, since the Broncos and Steelers, where you had overtime games in the wild card round. And just a lot of crazy stuff that happened. Looking at the Bills-Texans, I thought through the first half, the Buffalo Bills were on their way to get a decisively dominant victory over the Houston Texans. Josh Allen getting a huge 20-plus yard, or getting a huge 19-yard touchdown pass from John Brown. He also had the longest rush of the Bills year, for that 42-yard run on that first drive. The Bills defense got to Deshaun Watson 7 or 8 times, and they were just doing a fantastic job. And then when the turning points of the game were when Deshaun Watson had that 20-yard scramble run into the end zone, to get him within 8 points in a 2-point conversion. A great block, though, by Duke Johnson to get Deshaun on the outside and past the goal line. And then the J.J. Watt strip sack on Josh Allen. Then after that, Texans with the ability of DeAndre Hopkins and Watson just making key throws. Duke Johnson getting that huge 3rd and 18 play. Though I will have to say, somebody brought this up, that should have been a 3rd and 23 play during that part of the game. Because there should have been a delay game because the Texans clearly snapped the ball after the double zeros had hit the play clock. But that's neither here or there because Deshaun Watson made the play of the postseason with that huge 40-plus yard pass to Tyler Ervin, which set up the game-winning field goal from Kaimi Fairbairn for 28 yards. Congratulations to the Texans. I'm not the biggest Bill O'Brien fan, but I do want to give him a lot of credit for being able to stifle the Bills' offense and to basically just dominate that second half to get to a victory. Hopkins did his thing by making some big catches. Darren Fells made some big catches on that last drive to tie the game. And it was just an all-around phenomenal second half. Bill O'Brien, though, almost choked it away when he went for that fourth and 1, where I would have taken the field goal being up by 3, if they would have kicked the field goal up by 6, I would have trusted my chances with Josh Allen going in the trying to get into the end zone with how he had been playing through that half. Congrats to the Bills. It's still, since 1995 since the Bills have won a playoff game, and it's a tough pill to swallow. You could argue it's a tougher pill because last year they were basically down the whole game against the Jags. This one they were up 16 points. But I think with the Bills, they found a very nice core of talent. Defensively, offensively, that's a good unit to have. And I think Josh Allen's he has a Mitch Trubisky type of question coming up next year, where if he can maintain his game or elevate his game, this Bills team can, especially with what's going on with the Patriots, can actually contend for the AFC East next year and definitely for the playoffs. Or if not, they're just like the Bears, where they could win 7 to 9 games, but their quarterback's going to be their anchor that doesn't get them to where they are. When you look at the Titans and Patriots, that game, that was just a sensational job by Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans offensive line. Derrick Henry had 182 yards on the ground, or 160 on the ground and 180 scrimmage yards, and he was just gashing the Patriots defensive line play after play after play. On the one touchdown drive, he had all 75 yards for the Titans, because the Patriots secondary did a fantastic job. Ryan Tannehill only went 8 of 15 for 75 yards in that TD to Harvard tight end Cameron Fursker. But that was the difference, because you just felt that with Brady, that with as close the game was, he was going to have an opportunity to get in. But on that 1st and goal from the 1, they got stifled 3 straight runs and couldn't get anything. There were plenty of third down drops from Edelman and Harry. The Titans' defensive line got some batted balls. Logan Ryan had a pick six at the end of the first half, which he turned into a pick six to ice the game with 5 seconds left. And by the way, congratulations to Brett Kern for the underrated play of the game, pinning Tom Brady on the 1 yard line for that final drive, even though, again, there was still going to be 20 seconds left. I don't think they would have been able to capitalize. But congratulations to the Titans. It's their second playoff win in 16 years. Mike Vrabel, I thought, had a more impressive victory than what Mike Mularkey did the year before, even though they had to come back for a 21-3 deficit. So I think the Titans are in a very interesting position because, again, I feel like the Titans, they're in a spot where they have house money on them the rest of the way through. But they also have this history with this defense, even though losing Evans, or I think it was Brown, one of the linebackers, his injury status will be significant heading into the game against Baltimore. But the Titans are a team that are very scrappy, very disciplined, one of the least penalized teams in the National Football League. They have a great identity. They have two great weapons in Brown and Henry that they can run the ball. Tannehill is running this offense at a nice, efficient level. I don't think he'll be as bad as he was against the Pats defense. Who knows? He's playing a Baltimore defense, which has a lot more, firepower and depth to it. Though Tannehill was one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz, and the Ravens were the number one blitzing team in the entire National Football League this year, so that'll be interesting as well. And for the Patriots, I believe, from me personally as a fan, this is the end of the Patriots' run as a Super Bowl contender. The reason why I say that is you don't know what Tom Brady is going to do. You don't know if he's going to retire. Well, he said it's very unlikely he's going to retire, but you don't know if he's going to resign with the Patriots. Josh McDaniels, for the first time, I think will genuinely take a job from either the Carolina Panthers or the Cleveland Browns. Those are the two jobs that he's got the most interest in. I personally would not hire him because I believe Josh McDaniels is a giant snake. Because he's spurned 2 head coaching jobs before. So, hiring him, you're not hiring a great leader of men. This is also the same guy that in Denver did the taping. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree for any of those teams hiring Josh McDaniels. So, but I think he will probably be more inclined to take a job. You look at the Pats' offensive weapons, they don't really have a great tight end. They could get one in the draft, but they need to get other wide receivers. Sanu was a flop. Dorsett will probably leave. You have Edelman getting up there in age. And you have N'Keal Harry, who had a very disappointing rookie year. I know he's out the first half of the year. But also Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown for completely separate issues. You really wish, I think, for Pats fans that they were there. In those situations, but at the end of the day, both of them probably weren't going to be there anyway. Because Gordon got suspended from Seattle, and AB has his own, personal issues. I still think if Brady does come back, I think the Pats, they have enough of a culture, they have enough of a roster that they could still probably win the AFC East again. But for the first time in nearly, you could say, since 2011, since they went on this, 8-9-year run of going to every AFC Championship game, the Pats are not going to be a clear Super Bowl favorite. You could say, look, it was a bad year. Trust Bill, do your job, all that stuff. But I don't think it's going to work this time around. Can they make the playoffs if Brady comes back? Sure, they can make the playoffs. But after that, who knows? I think that the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Texans, the Chiefs, Ravens, and Texans are all in better positions right now to move forward. Maybe even the Titans to a smaller extent because Brady was 2-0. But congrats to the Titans, and for the Pats, just kind of an unfortunate ending. 20 years, congratulations, hats off to you. But now it's time to just, turn over a new leaf and try to hopefully build for a future. And I'll get to the other 2 games, and I'll get to my record and picks. Vikings-Saints, what a game. What a game. The Minnesota Vikings pulled off a tremendous upset in beating the Saints. I think that was the one game that basically, unless you were a diehard Homer Vikings fan, shout out to Gioknows. Check out his channel in my bio to see his predictions and his thoughts for the game. Then nobody expected them to win. And the Vikings from beginning to end, the better team. Dalvin Cook outplayed Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray. Thielen and Diggs made bigger catches than Michael Thomas. And it was surprising, but I think for a lot of people, this is the problem with the Saints offense. That when you have two guys in Kamara and Thomas that basically do everything for you, you can't, nobody else really made any contributions. Jared Cook made a couple nice receptions. The third biggest contributor on the entire game yesterday was Taysom Hill, the third-string quarterback, who's the Joker, as they call him, who caught a touchdown. He blocked for a touchdown. Latavius Murray, he threw a 50-yard pass. And you could argue he was the better quarterback than Drew Brees. Even though Drew Brees still threw for 220-plus yards, he had the touchdown to Taysom. He threw to Taysom. Through three quarters, he only had 79 yards. And he was under the most duress that he had been the entire year, or tied to it. I think Atlanta was the only other game which they lost at the same time in the Superdome. The Saints were just not all together. And it just showed because the Vikings, after Taysom Hill gets this huge 40-yard run, what does Drew Brees do the very next play? He gets stripped by Danielle Hunter, and it cost the Saints a huge opportunity there. Will Lutz missing that 43-yard field goal near the end of the first half was going to be incredibly significant, which could have got them into a game-winning field goal at that drive instead of the game-tying one. But I think the bigger story of the day, though, was Kirk Cousins. Congratulations to Kirk Cousins for earning his $28 million this year. For the Saints and Vikings, they're the first playoff matchup for, I think it's 3 straight times to go on to end on the final play of the game. The Saints have an NFL record 6 consecutive playoff losses by 1 score. They're the second team since the 2013 to 2015 Packers to lose 3 straight postseason games on the final play of the game. And they're the second team in NFL history to lose back-to-back overtime postseason games with the Rams and the Vikings, respectively. I know what the Saints fans are going to say. There was the offensive pass interference from Kyle Rudolph. I agree with that perspective that, that should have been called. And you could say, look, it's a conspiracy, especially after last year. But I don't think it was as egregious. And honestly, if you look at the totality of the game, the Vikings were the better team yesterday, and they deserved that victory. And Kirk Cousins, with the 2 big throws of his life, the 30-plus, or the big completion to Adam Thielen, which was the same exact play in Week 4 that they missed in their 16-6 loss to the Bears. But for the Vikings, job well done. This is a team that has a lot of talent around it and a lot of confidence. Because they're going to be the underdogs again in San Francisco. But they're just like with the Titans. They're playing with house money. All the pressure is on the 49ers. The Vikings are just happy to be there. And I think the Vikings, they're going to learn from the last time. Because after winning the miracle game against the Saints a couple years ago, on the very last play, they went to Philadelphia and laid a massive egg. I don't think the Vikings are going to lay that massive an egg this time. But who knows? It's Kirk Cousins. It could be the Vikings. It could be just, overtiredness from the game. But kudos to the Vikings. And for the Saints, I will put it this way. I think when you look at Sean Payton and Drew Brees, Sean Payton is seen as one of the best coaches in the National Football League. He's right up there with Belichick and Reed and, all those other people. After what I saw yesterday, you know what Sean Payton is? He's the AFC version of Mike Tomlin. That's what Sean Payton is. Mike Tomlin is still a top 6 or 7 coach, but that upper echelon of coaches, you could start arguing he's not at that tip-top level, because the way that they've lost 3 straight years, all the yardage and all the stats and all the consistency, and I even thought that they were going to probably make the Super Bowl. I know I had my original prediction of the Pats-Eagles. That went awry. But for the New Orleans Saints, this was a wasted year. And for Drew Brees, is he essentially, to me, the best, a more statistically impressive version of Peyton Manning? For as great as he was in the regular season, all the regular season stats you can have, the man's 500. And I will say this right now. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Drew Brees. And he will have a better career, in my opinion, than Drew Brees. Okay, if you want to talk about better pure quarterback, okay, you give that to Drew. But everything being considered, I will say Russell Wilson right now is the better quarterback, and he will have a better career than Drew Brees will. Because Russell Wilson will do more in the postseason than Drew Brees ever will. Because I think Drew Brees, look, he could still play. He still may end up with the Saints. But there's just going to be this constant feeling of Drew Brees getting older. And every time you wanted to bank on Drew Brees, in the end, more often than not, he would let the Saints down. And, that's kind of my aspect of it. And then finally with the Eagles and Seahawks, that was kind of the letdown of the weekend after all the craziness with the Texans-Bills, the Titans-Patriots, and the Patriots finally falling, and the Vikings pulling off the upset of the weekend. Seahawks-Eagles just kind of felt elementary. It felt like a Seattle game where it was just grinding. It wasn't pretty. And I know for a lot of Eagles fans, Carson Wentz going down was the final injury that they couldn't take, and I agree with that. And everybody wants to talk about the Jadeveon Clowney hit. I'll put it this way: I think that was a targeting shot to the back. I think that was a dirty play. He should have been, penalized. You could argue he should have been ejected because in college that's targeting. That was the clear definition of targeting with your helmet. So I am all for that. But everybody out there saying that Jadeveon Clowney is a dirty player, I don't think he is. I think he sounded like he had a lot of attrition there. He thought it was a bang play, and I'll take his word for that. I don't think he intended to hurt Carson Wentz, and you know what? That's just an unfortunate circumstance. The people saying that it affects Carson Wentz's injury history, I get it in a perspective because that does count as an injury, and if you're looking at Carson Wentz as the operation man or as the glass man, you can just put a mark on his head now for injuries. He's already got hurt in his leg, his back, his knee. His wrist. He's basically been poked at every single body part. But an injury like that's just such a random freak injury that rarely happens in football, especially to the quarterback. I don't think it's fair to look at Carson Wentz's injuries like, he failed again. So that's how I look at it. I think for the Seahawks, look, it was a job well done. Russell Wilson accounting for 95% of his team's total offense, which is a Elias NFL playoff record, and congratulations to DK Metcalf as well for breaking the NFL rookie record for a playoff debut for 160 yards on 7 receptions and the 53-yard touchdown pass from Russell Wilson. I think the Seahawks, look, they could not run the ball at all. You didn't have your starting left tackle Dwayne Brown, their starting left guard Mike Iupati, or their starting center Justin Britt. They were playing 3 backups on the offensive line. But to only get 17 carries for 19 yards. Travis Homer had 12 yards, and he had 12 yards and 11 carries, and one of those runs was a 12-yard carry. So the other 10 runs he had either went for 0 or negative yards, or went for no yards. So that's an incredible feat by the Seahawks with Russell Wilson. I don't know if they can continue that against the Packers, but I think with the Seahawks, if they let Russell Wilson continue to throw more, they'll do a better job that way. All right, so those are all my thoughts from yesterday's game or from this weekend's games. Now time for my picks and my results from last week. So against the spread last week, I was fortunate enough to go 2-1-1, which equals 62.5%. The one push I got was from the Bills. When I did this video, I kept the line I saw was +3. They ended up losing 22-19. So I fortunately got the line before the 2.5. So I ended up getting a push with that one, and I will take that. And straight up, I had my definitely a very unfortunate week, getting 1-3. Even though I am happy the one game I did get right was the one I was more personally interested in the Seahawks beating the Eagles. But only getting 25% of the games right through the first week is not very good. So that's my overall record for the postseason so far. Again, against the spread 2-2-1 or 2-1-1, straight up 1-3. Overall for the year now, I am 144, 111, and 5 pushes, which equals 56.4%. And straight up now, I am 168, 91, and 1, which equals 64.8%. So definitely a drop of about 6,000 thousandths of a point, so it's unfortunate to get to 64.8%. I think with the 7 games that are left, I can get up to 65. So that's my goal through the last 7 games to get to 65%, which I'm confident that I can reach. So one more time, overall now for the year against the spread, I am 144, 111, and 5, which equals 56.4%. And straight up, I am 168, 91, and 1, which equals 64.8%. All right, it's time for my picks and thoughts for this weekend's game. So on Saturday, the first game, when the 6th-seeded Minnesota Vikings go to the number 1-seeded San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers are 6.5-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here, minus 6.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 6th-seeded Tennessee Titans go to the number 1-seeded Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 9-point favorites in this game. I like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but I will take Tennessee plus 9. Then the next game on Sunday at 3:05 Eastern on the early window, when the 4th-seeded Houston Texans go to the number 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here to win straight up, but I will take Houston plus 9.5. And then finally, in probably the closest game of the weekend, when the number 5-seeded Seattle Seahawks go to the number 2-seeded Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 4-point favorites in this game. Out of all 3 of these games, this is the one where I'm hedging. If this was, under 2, it was kind of like the perfect number for me. I would have felt better if it was 2, or 3, 3 or under. 4 is a little bit too much for me, especially with the Seattle team. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but I'll take Seattle plus 4 on the line. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. The San Francisco 49ers over the Minnesota Vikings. This one, to me, the biggest reason why I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers is because there's just something in me that I think the Vikings are going to be very much in store, or at least somewhat in store for the same thing that happened with them against the Eagles. I know that they don't want that to happen, and, look, Mike Zimmer brought it up. Very smart on his part. Because if you look at both teams, they're incredibly similar. You have 2 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think people are going to lean with Jimmy on the quarterback side. You look at the running backs, you have Coleman, you have Mostert, you have Breida. You have 3 guys and more depth at running back. Or with the Vikings, I guess you do have Ham, Alexander Madison, and Dalvin Cook. So I would probably take the Vikings running game because, the Niners running game is very much so more of... it's more so about quantity than quality. The Vikings, it's very much kind of like the difference of quality than quantity, because Dalvin Cook was a top 5 rusher in the league, and he's probably he's better than every running back the Niners have, and I think he's fully healthy and he looked great. He got the most rushing yards on the Saints through the first half all year, and I think it was their highest total they've given up on the ground for the Saints this year in total. So that's about a push. The receivers you have to give to Minnesota. The tight end you have to give to San Francisco. Though having Irv and Kyle is maybe a little bit of an equal advantage compared to Dwelly and Kittle for San Francisco. The front sevens are arguably a push. I take the Niners defensive front. I would take the Vikings safeties. I would take the Niners corners. Kicking wise, Bailey, Gold, that's about a push too. The Niners have the better fullback because you would take Juszczyk over Ham. And it's just like this weird context of like where the Minnesota Vikings, they just beat the Saints in the Superdome. And going to San Francisco isn't nearly as bad. And the San Francisco 49ers defense, like I said in previous videos, has not been as effective as it has the first 12 or 13 weeks. They gave up 29 to Atlanta. They gave up 46 to New Orleans. They gave up 31 to the Rams. They almost gave up 28 plus to the Seahawks. So the Vikings have an offense with the talent that they showed against the Saints defense. They can move the ball on the 49ers defense. My thing is, I just don't think that with the Niners, I think that they're going to be able to stuff Dalvin Cook more effectively. And I feel like with that, Kirk Cousins and the play action game for them will not be nearly as effective. And I think the Niners pass rush will do a better job against the Vikings offensive line than the Vikings pass rush will do against the Niners offensive line. I think that for Jimmy He's been in these situations before. He's at home. For them having to go out to the West Coast. For the Vikings, I'll look it up here now. I'm going to find out when was the last time they won in San Francisco. Let's see. Because these two teams do not play each other that often. And the Niners recently have had a good history of beating the Vikings at a good rate. Let's see. So the last time the Vikings won in San Francisco was December 9th, 2007. So when you look at that, so it's been over 12 years since the Vikings have gone to San Francisco and won a game. I think Kirk and them will play well, but I just think the Niners pass rush, getting Quan Alexander, is significant for the Niners themselves. I think the Niners will be able to run the ball more effectively. They'll get better pressure on Kirk Cousins, and they'll shut down the run more effectively. Where I think for the Vikings, it's going to be a little bit tougher with the versatility the Niners running backs have, and Juszczyk being able to be an extra runner and asset that the Vikings don't nearly have as much. It should be an interesting game, and it would be kind of surprising in some ways if the Vikings beat the 49ers. But after what they did in New Orleans, I guess people could say, hey, look, this Vikings team, has had this great matchup all year, and going into Seattle or Green Bay, I don't think the Vikings should be, as doubted going into that game, especially with the two wins they had, if they were able to win over the Niners and the Saints, probably the two best teams in the NFC, by most fans thinking. So that's why I like San Francisco here -6.5, and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Tennessee Titans. This is one where the biggest reason why I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens is that this is going to be the first time that Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans are playing the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens offense. When you look at Lamar Jackson, the only team, not when you play him for the first time, it's not a very good record for teams. When you look at when he took over the job, teams that played him in the first time, he went 6-1, and there were 6-1 in 2018, and then I know he's only played 2 years, but 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He's won. He has never lost a game where the first time a new team has played him, he's 16-0 in games where a brand new team over the last 2 years has played the Baltimore Ravens for the first time. He's been able to beat the Browns, who's played him a couple times. The only team he hasn't been able to beat that's seen him multiple times is the Chiefs. But yeah, so I think that's going to be the biggest stat there for the Ravens and for them to win this game. I think for the Ravens as well, this is a primetime game. John Harbaugh is one of the best primetime coaches in the NFL. When you look at the Ravens, it's a completely different offensive and game plan you have to deal with compared to the Patriots, who are very static. Tom Brady is not nearly as mobile as Lamar, or as effective as a runner and a thrower. You have Mark Ingram. You have, hopefully playing, you have Gus Edwards. You have Justice Hill, the running back from Oklahoma State. This is, remember, the number one team all time in terms of total rushing yards. The Ravens broke the Patriots record back in the 1970s. The secondary matchups will be interesting because I feel like, Humphreys and Humphrey and Peters going up against Brown and Davis will be very interesting. I think that the Ravens have a significant advantage at tight end because Jonnu went out of the game, and if you have Jonnu and Firsker against our secondary, I like our matchups with Andrews, Boyle, and Hurst at tight end. In that perspective, We have a significant kicking advantage. Shout out to Keith Bailey here, another NFL YouTube prognosticator. Since week 10, when Ryan Tannehill took over, the Titans have only kicked 2 field goals within the last 7 or 8 weeks, and they've only made, and they have not even made a field goal, and they only attempted 8 field goals for the entire year. But that's because the Titans have the best red zone offense in the NFL since Tannehill took over. I think they've said they've scored on 80+% of their red zone drives as touchdowns, which is crazy. And I think that's going to be just the interesting thing for the Ravens that I'd be a little nervous about. Because like I said earlier in my video, the Titans are a team that know what they are. They always somehow seem to play better as underdogs. And I think they can give the Ravens a good amount of fight because I think Derrick Henry can wear them down. I just think it's going to be up to us to get the pressure on Ryan Tannehill. And if we do blitz him, it's going to be up to us to be able to hold coverages and make sure he doesn't get a lot of splash and explosive plays, which at times of the Ravens this year, we've given up from the Cardinals game to the Seahawks game to the Browns game. We've given up some pretty significant plays. And with the Titans' offensive weapons they have, especially with Tannehill being able to move his feet in a decent way to create some space and time, I think the Titans can put up a good fight in the situation that most people are not thinking is going to be that decisive of a game. I think it's going to be close because, again, I've seen the Titans play enough as an underdog to tell me that they will put up a better fight than a lot of people expect, especially with a guy like Henry who's going to get one of the best paychecks and going to get paid. He's one of the best running backs in the league, deservedly so. I think it's going to be a close game for a lot of people to watch. I think at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to the Ravens being able to control the clock, being able to score more points than 13. The Ravens have usually averaged over 30 points during this entire year. I think we can get up to 27 to 28, 30 points. And I don't think with the Titans, as great as they are in terms of their running game, I think we're not going to let Derrick Henry get over 160 yards. And if we put the ball in Tannehill's hands, he will not do that well in this spot. And the Ravens have routinely beaten Ryan Tannehill when he was a Dolphin more often than not in a lot of big games. So playing Tannehill in this spot will not be as hard. So that's like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but I'll take the Tennessee Titans +9. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Houston Texans. I'm taking the Chiefs here just because I can't trust Bill O'Brien in the spot. Again, look, he had his big moment, and congratulations to Deshaun and all them, but that was more Deshaun and the offensive players and the coaching itself that won him this game. And I know people are going to say, look, the Texans went into Kansas City and beat them by 6 points, 33-27. That's all well and good, and that's why I'm going to take you guys on the line because I feel like 9.5 points is way too many, especially with a team that hopefully will get Will Fuller back, which will be significant. Hopkins will be there. You have Kuti there. You have Stills there. You have Darren Fells, who's at an underrated tight end season. And you have a Chiefs defense that, even though it's, not nearly as good as it was before or during the beginning of the year, it's definitely got a lot better. They are playing a team that was able to run the ball effectively down their throat with Hyde and Duke Johnson. I think they're going to run a similar type strategy. And I feel like having Will Fuller there back will help keep a defender, honest. I think he can get some, big plays, chunk plays with Fuller running seam routes using his speed. And I just think with the Chiefs, they're just this weird feeling. With Andy Reid, having rest, he's, lost this game before as a 2 seed in the divisional round, 2016 against the Steelers, where the Steelers won the game off of 6 field goals compared to 2 touchdowns. There's a part of me just saying, I know the Chiefs have been great, and they should easily somehow be able to get this victory, but as you watch how the year's going on, especially with how the Texans have been playing, they're playing with house money, they're playing with a lot of confidence, they're playing with a, quarterback that is showing you that he will do anything in his power to try to win a game. If he said, why can't it, somebody has to be great, why can't it be him? That was what he said after the Bills game, and I think it will be great to keep this Texans team enough in this game to keep it close, but I just think with how the Chiefs defensive pass rush are going, with how the Houston offensive line has showed throughout playoff games not to be able to hold up, especially for Deshaun Watson, I think the Chiefs get a few big third down stops, a couple of significant sacks at key moments. I think Mahomes in that offense move the ball much more effectively than the Bills could because the Chiefs just have a better quarterback and better all-around talent to beat up and shred a below-average Houston Texans defense. So that's why I like Kansas City here straight up, but I'll take Houston plus 9.5. And finally, the Green Bay Packers over the Seattle Seahawks. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here because Russell Wilson, he's had 7 games in his career against the Green Bay Packers. He's 4-0 at CenturyLink Field. He's 0-3 at Lambeau Field. He's completed an average of about 58% of his passes. He's in the 3 scores of the game were 27-17 Green Bay, 36-10 Green Bay, and 17-9 Green Bay. In those 3 games, he has 3 touchdowns compared to 6 interceptions, but there is a significant outlier there. The second game, he had 5 picks. In the other 2 games, that means he's thrown 1 pick in 2 other games. But I just think, again, like Seattle, there's a weird feeling about this where Seattle was 8-1 on the road. They continue their undefeated streak for Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll is now 6-0 against the Eagles all time, and Russell Wilson is now 5-0 against the Eagles all time. In those games, they've been better on the road. And I feel like with the Packers defense, they've shown that they can get a lot of good pass rush going, and then in big spots, they're able to make significant stops. But this is, Russell Wilson is this Seattle team. They have a history in the postseason. The Packers remember what happened. A lot of them, something to do with the last time when they played Seattle in a postseason game. We all know how that ended with the Russell Wilson Jermaine Kearse touchdown pass, which sent them to the Super Bowl 49. But I'm going to take the Packers here just because, again, I feel like the Packers' defensive line will be able to get through the Seattle offensive line. And I think Seattle, as great as Russell Wilson is, I don't think they'll be able to get a great running game going. The Green Bay run defense has been pretty consistent all year. Been consistent recently. I know they've given up some yards. But the Seattle Seahawks do not have a running back in either Travis Homer, Lynch, or Robert Turbin that really strides any fear. And I think Russell's arm can get them far enough. But I just think with Rodgers having the better matchup with the weaker defense, with Clowney dealing with injuries, with Michael Kendricks out having Will Barton replace him at linebacker, they have the better kicker in this game. They have they have somewhat of a little bit more effective tight end, a little bit more well-known with Jimmy Graham compared to Jacob Hollister and Luke Wilson. But I'm going to take the Packers here at home straight up because I can't go against history. I think Russell Wilson, this might be the best game of his career in Lambeau, but I do not think he's going to win it. And I'm going to tell him right now, and for any Seattle fan out there, do not 2003 wildcard this or divisional round this. Don't have, if it comes down to the end, don't have Russell Wilson say, we're going to take the ball and we're going to score on the first drive, because that ended up being the worst thing for the Seahawks that year in the 0-3 wildcard round, losing on a pick 6 to Al Harris to end the game. Do I think the Seahawks have a chance? Sure. I think, Russell Wilson's been playing better this year than Aaron Rodgers. They've been a better road team, and they've won a lot of close games. In 17 games this year, 13 of them have been in one-score games, which is 8 points or less. They're 11-2 in that span. No other team like that, people said, to have had 5 to 6 wins in one-score games so far. It should be a great game. I'm going to hedge my bet here because I think Seattle, they have a good chance, but I feel like with the Packers, they're at home. I just told you about the recent lack of success Rodgers had in Lambeau. And I think with Seattle, unless DK Metcalf has another monster game, which he could, I just don't think the Packers are going to allow that to happen. Especially with their taller corners and Jair and Kevin. I think those guys are going to do effective enough in DK to limit him to where Russell won't be able to just chuck the ball down the field to DK on simple go routes. So that's why I like Green Bay here to win straight up, but I'll take Seattle +4. And that is it. So until next week, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's enjoy the last 7 games of football in the year 2020 with a great bang. And for every team out there, for every Vikings, Niners, Ravens, Titans, Chiefs, Texans, Seahawks, and Packers fan out there, Happy New Year to all you guys and everybody else that's that's on the couch for the rest of the year. Great job, up and down, for how well your teams did. Happy, New Year to all my fans out there and everybody watching. Hopefully a Happy New Year for all the teams that are, going through the process of getting in the off season. And until next time, when I give my AFC and NFC Conference Championship game predictions, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.